Hello, welcome to the Roller Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Today, for March Martial Arts Madness Month, we're reviewing a special film, Kung Fu Hustle, which is probably, of the 2000s, one of the most popular Kung Fu parody movies, other than Stephen Odenkirk's, I forget the name, Kung Pow, which it's the thing where, like, if you ask me which of the two movies are better, I would have to answer with whatever one I watched last, because they're equally great films, right? So the movie, it stars and is directed by Stephen Chow. You got Yuen I don't know how to pronounce her name, as landlady, Bruce Leung as the Beast, Yuen as landlord, which the only other movie I've ever seen him in, aside from this movie, is the, what was it called? Dragon Tiger Gate, which is pretty great Donnie Yen movie where where despite being 40, he tries to pretend to be a young man with a stylish hairstyle. You got Danny Chan as Kwan as Brother Sum, who he was in Shaolin Soccer. You got Hyung Shangli as Fong, which she doesn't speak in the movie because she's a deaf mute. So to prepare for this review, I watched a bunch of Stephen Chow movies, because in the past I had only ever saw this movie, Shaolin Soccer, and a really terrible movie, God of Gamblers 2, which was like a sequel to God of Gamblers 1 with Chow Yun Fat and Andy Lau. And God of Gamblers 2, the Chow Yun Fat only shows up at the very end, and it's like reused footage from the first movie, which is like the only fucking funny line in that funny thing in that movie. Which that movie was terrible, and because that movie was so terrible, it put me off on Stephen Chow movies, which I horribly regret, because like I was hanging out with my dog the last couple weeks, and I was, browsing along Netflix, and I saw, there was a bunch of Stephen Chow movies, and I binge watched a bunch of them. Love on Delivery, which is not about escorts. It's about a delivery boy in love with a woman. I could see the confusion there. I also saw Mad Monk, which has Maggie, what's her name? Maggie something. The really hot girl from Ashes of Time, 1991 Dragon Gate Inn. She plays a hooker in that movie and looks gorgeous with a little butterfly tattoo on her shoulder, even though it's supposed to be ancient China in Mad Monk. I also saw Royal Tramp 1, which is another Kung Fu comedy film, and Lookout Officer, which that one was also another great Stephen Chow movie. Right. So I horribly regret that back in the day I saw one bad Stephen Chow movie and I gave up on him. That was a horrible mistake. But we're not here to talk about my mistakes. We're here to talk about this great film, Kung Fu Hustle, which I was wrong. I thought the movie took place in like the 1920s or 30s. It takes place in 1940s, right? Well, the movie is about in like China. There's this rising problem with street gangs, where you see one street gang called the Crocodile Gang like harass and beat up the police, and then as they're leaving the building, they get wiped out by a much bigger gang called the Axe Gang, which apparently has been in a bunch of movies. It's like another movie that was in, according to Stephen Chow, was Drunken Master 2, which I haven't seen. Which we're supposed to review Drunken Master sometime during martial arts month, which, you know, we don't have a lot of days left, so we need to get on that. Right? And the main character of this film is Singh and his fat, dumb friend, who Singh wants to become notorious as like a gangster. He wants to become a ferocious killer because when he was a child, he got scammed into buying a fake kung fu manual and got beat up by bullies. And since that time, you know, he feels like it's better to be a villain than be a hero because villains rule this world, which is true, right? But the problem is he's incompetent other than his lock-picking skill. So while him and his friend were trying to impersonate as Axe Gang members in Pigsty Alley, which is a poor district in China, they dragged the Axe Gang into a conflict with Kung Fu masters hiding in Pigsty Alley, which kills the second leader of the Axe Gang, and you know they suffer horrible losses. Hire kung fu killers to take out the Axe Gang. Sorry, not the Axe Gang, the kung fu masters, right? And even free from prison, this horrible psychotic evil kung fu master called the Beast, which is played by Bruce Leung, who, if you look him up, he's wearing like a wig, but he's actually bald. And I watched like a Stephen Chow interview about this movie, how like he went to meet Bruce Leung, and he was like, Bruce, can you take your, which that's not his real name, that's his American name. Bruce, can you take your wig off? Yes, perfect. Look, you have to look like that in the movie. Right. So, after getting Stephen Chow's character Singh eventually does join the Axe Gang, but after seeing the Beast beat on landlord and landlady who are like heroic kung fu masters, he decides to get involved, but gets beaten to near death, but that fixes his chi flow, and then he becomes this kung fu master at the end of the movie. So what I really enjoy about this movie, right, besides from the random like humor that just pops out of nowhere, and the Western references, which if you've ever seen Love on Delivery, lots of Western references in that movie as well. There's even like a Looney Tune chase scene, which one complaint I have about the movie, there's too much CGI in the film, right? But other than that, I thought that didn't bother me. There are practical effects in the movie. Also, I forgot to mention Yuen Wu Ping, who did fight choreography in the Matrix films. I think he did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Forbidden Kingdom. Also did the fight choreography in this film. Which there are fight scenes in the movie where they incorporate CGI, but there are some actual pretty cool martial arts scenes in the movie, especially in the beginning, right? So yeah, what I really enjoy about this movie is that you don't know exactly who the heroes are in this movie, because like like at first you see these three guys, these three guys fight the Axe Gang, and you think they're gonna be the heroes of the film, especially the guy who's like a martial arts is like kicking, right? He looks very heroic heroic and cool. Later on, they get wiped out, and especially him. He got the worst of it, where he didn't even get to fight back. He just got his head chopped off. Didn't even get a chance to fight back. And then you're like, okay, our 3 heroes are dead. Who's gonna take over? And then it's the landlord and the landlady who are constantly fighting each other. Landlord's constantly getting beaten by his fat, smoking wife for, like, flirting with the other women and acting like a pervert. Which there's a funny scene in the beginning of the movie where he got thrown out of his building, right, and had a flower pot dropped on his head. But when the axe gang showed up, he's still on the floor, gathers the spilled soil from the flower pot and just buries his covers his head and face, trying to masquerade as a flower pot, which is a really funny scene. Other funny scenes are when Stephen Chow's character tries to assassinate the landlady with throwing knives, which were cheap steak knives, and he kept missing, and they kept hitting, kept bouncing back and hitting him, even when his friend took over trying to throw the knives. Which, there's an explanation for why that is. Why he's so incompetent for being evil, because he's destined to be he's destined to be this holy warrior. Because at the end of the movie, he's able to use the Buddha palm, which is a special kung fu technique. I don't know. It's a thing where watch clips of this movie and decide for yourself if this is a movie that you guys want to watch. I think if you're a fan of kung fu movies and you're a fan of random, immature humor, right? Then this is a great film for you. Though I did think the whole romance part of this film, which is hardly in the film, was kind of unnecessary. But you kind of have to have that in there for the lady folk, women's folk, because they have to. Even though the Stephen Chow and the deaf girl in the movie are supposed to be the same age, and he's 20 years older than her. Visibly is 20 years older than her. I thought that was a little dumb, but overall I enjoyed the movie. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. This is probably, along with Kung Pow, probably one of the best kung fu parody films ever made. And even some of Stephen Chow's older kung fu comedy films are also worth watching. Check out Mad Monk is probably my favorite over Royal Tramp. The Royal Tramp is also good, right? So that's it for today's review. I was supposed to review a Wong Kar-wai film, which he did a movie I reviewed, Ashes of Time, which is a really great wuxia film. It's like a kung fu art house film, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But I would argue that Ashes of Time is probably more of an art house film than Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is more entertaining. But yeah, I was supposed to review a movie that he put out in 2013, starring Tony Young, who was a actor who worked on Ashes of Time. But YouTube took down the movie on Google. Now it's no longer available for me to rent. Throughout this month was available for rent. I just never got around to it. When I finished watching the movie, I was going to rent it so I could watch it for tomorrow. It's fucking gone from the Google Play Store. It's son of a bitch. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to be able to review the Grandmaster this month. But I'll get the movie. I'll order the movie, and when it shows up, I'll review it then. So what we're going to review next is another Zhang Yimou film, which he was the director of House of Flying Daggers, 2018 Shadow, which is on Netflix. So if you want to watch it and give me your thoughts on it when I post my review. Cool. Alright, guys, that's it for today's